Hi, I'm Ed from Celtic Motorhomes and I'm going to do a quick video on how to relocate the rear door handle on a Boxer, Ducato or Relay from 2006 onwards using our kit. Typically this will be really useful for you if you've got any kind of fixed bed in the back which prevents you from getting normal access to the rear door handle. It's important that you do have access to the rear door handle if you need to get out in an emergency. The kit consists of a folded aluminium plate which has got holes for fixing. There are various ways of doing that to the back door. I'll go through a couple of those. It's got a custom made cable which has got the correct width soldered nipple at this end for the existing handle which you're going to relocate. It doesn't include the handle. There's a strengthening plate which helps it clip into place. There's a block here which will allow you to clamp the cable. It clamps the cable via a solderless nipple which is sandwiched in between and allows access through a keyway with an Allen key. This is bolted together and it will also clamp the existing door handle nipple which will be located in this slot once it's in place. The kit also comprises a collection of washers which will allow you to fix it in various locations, 2 different lengths of cap head stainless steel bolts, a couple of small washers and a couple of screw-in lugs which will allow you to maybe mount the handle to a different position on a wooden panel, etc. To help you out, we've also included a CNC cut template which has got the exact size of the opening, 2 holes which correspond with these holes, and that will allow you to push that in there. You could locate it to this, screw this into place somewhere in the van, or you could use this as a template to cut your existing panel and put the holes in the correct place. I say there are various ways of doing this. The main thing is that this needs to locate in the upper end of the door, with the back of it going into the gap. In an ideal world, I would have it open in this way, which means your cable is probably going to come up the outside and then loop around. Because the cable's fixed in place, it doesn't really matter, it'll go around corners because it relies on the cable sleeve for tension. So personally I would have it this way so that when you open it, the door opens that way. So let's get on to fitting. Okay, the fitting of this is relatively straightforward. You can make it a little bit more complicated. It's up to you. We make it more complicated because I like to keep this area quite flush. So I'll show you the most straightforward way first. You're going to get this end of the cable with the stiffening block in it. You need to push it up this side of the door frame. I've just taped that in place. Try not to kink that, but just tape that in place so that it's able to push up and this isn't going to get jammed. You've got bolts in there, so take any insulation out that you may have put in there. First thing to do is to feed that through there. Now you can just feed that up there, and then once it comes out the top, we know we're good. Now, the most straightforward way of mounting this, you're going to have your slot here which is going to hold the original cable which you've taken out of the handle. So this is your original cable. The easiest way to put this on is just to put it straight over those holes. Tuck this bit behind put that over the 2 holes. Take your 2 screws with washers, and just mount it there. So now you've got this part, which has got the brass solderless nipple in there. There's 4 stainless steel bolts holding it through. It's a 3mm Allen key, and I think it's about a 5 or 6mm nut. So what we're going to need to do at this end is remove these. At the moment they're just finger tight. I've put a spare one in the pack because inevitably you're going to drop one. It's going to land down there or bounce halfway down the road. In case anyone's wondering why the door is at chin level with me, it's because the van's on axle stands for other purposes. Although I am a short arse. This is probably the fiddliest part. The bolts are quite small. And then when we pull that off, you can see you've got the solderless nipple with an Allen key on the top. It's a 2mm Allen key, I think. We're going to make sure this cable stays in this channel. We're then going to put the original cable into the slot. Now there's probably about 10mm of clearance here, so we're going to just flex the cable back and then push the groove into the slot. It doesn't matter that this cable is now doing this or that. It doesn't really make any difference there, because it's going to just be a straightforward cable pull. So this is the fiddly bit where you probably need an extra hand or 2. So in this hole we're going to locate the original barrel nipple. So that's going to go sideways in that hole. This one is going to go into that hole, and then the cable is going to travel through. It will test your patience a little bit to try and line all of these up. I say you do really need an extra pair of hands. So right, a little bit of fiddling around. It is fiddly, not gonna lie, but it's certainly not impossible. Once it's clamped together, I would try and get at least 1 nut on to get the opposite corner on so it doesn't twist. Or so I'm just going to nip these up without putting all 4 in at the moment. So that's not going anywhere. We're now going to get the top handle. Take the tape off it. This is really straightforward. You just push that part into there, push it down into the socket, just nip up the nut so that it's on the back. I would do that up with the spanner, just put a little bit of tension on it. Whilst there's some slack on this, just fit the nipple in that slot. Pull that tight. Now we can do all the adjustment here. There's no need to try and adjust it on any of these. These are just there as guides. So we'll leave that hanging for a minute. So putting the tension on is done all at this end. We want to make sure that when we pull the tension on, we put that tight up against the insert, and the same in here. You want to make sure that it's not sat outside, so it wants to be inside of the socket. So we're going to take our 2mm Allen key, just slacken that off probably 1 turn, enough that this pulls through it. You don't want to take the Allen key out. Pull that so that that's in there. Make sure that one's in there. Pull this through. Put a little bit of tension on it. You probably don't need pliers, and then just do up the Allen key. Now this one you can nip it up a bit tighter now. So now you should have a working handle. So that's pulling there, and if we look up there, the handle's pulling there. We'll do a quick test by shutting the door, make sure it opens properly. But that's as simple as it is. Now personally, I would mount this that way round. You can see the cable is just curling around behind it. It makes no difference that the cable's curling. And depending on how you wanted to mount it, you could use the wooden frame that we've given you. My own method of mounting it is to put this into a panel. You can see from the pictures on our advert, we put this into a panel where the holes are pre-drilled, and then behind we put 2 strips of wood with inserts in them lined up with the holes, but the strips of wood clamp behind here. We probably use 12mm birch, clamp it behind there. We screw it to the outer panel, and then when you push this on, this is actually being bolted to the 2 strips which are now pulling behind this. So because they're pulling behind this, when you pull on the handle, you're actually using the frame for support as well. But there are various methods of doing that. At the end of the day, you're probably mostly going to be opening the door with it, not necessarily shutting it. The other method of fitting this to give a flush view here is to basically undo these, put this aluminium plate onto the back of the rivnets and slightly over the back end of the rivnet, then using a combination of glued together washers. You can put 2 fat washers on with a 6mm washer, which will then pull this against the back. The fiddly part then is just doing these up from behind. But that's the way we would do it. I'm showing you the easy way because you may not be inclined to do it that way. It's going to be a bit more effort, but I'll quickly go through that now. So I'm going to put this behind. I'm going to sit these over the bolts. And what I've done, I've just super glued together 2 10mm washers. They're quite thick washers, and then a 6mm washer over the top, so that'll just go on the back of those rivnets. Then I can just get the standard cap head, and with a little bit of fiddly access I can get that screwed in the back. It'll take you 5 minutes longer and you'll have a few cuts on your hands, but I think it's a nicer fit. It leaves this area a bit more flush to allow the fitting of panels. Our panels fit quite flush here, and I suppose the biggest bugbear is this little bump here. So by keeping this behind, it stops us having the problem of the bolts. So we'll push that on that side. So we just got a 5mm Allen key in there. See what I mean? It's a little bit of fun. So that's now tight, this is flush, and I'll just show you where this gets clipped in. So you've got the slot, this sits about 10mm forward of it. If you just bend that behind, and then I'm going to push that into the slot. I'm trying to do it one-handed and hold the camera, which is not ideal. So it's going to go up in the slot, push it to the top. Now we can go back and put tension on this. So we'll pull that onto tension. And then we'll hold that under tension while we put that on there. I say a third hand, pulling this with a pair of pliers would be a lot easier, but that's under enough tension that we won't have any issues with it. So there you go, that's your method 2 of fitting. You just tuck that away. Obviously when this pulls, this is just gonna do that, so don't try and fix this to anything there. That'll just sit in that gap.